just so that we have all the notes. But yeah, in San Antonio specifically, I know that there's quite a contingent of makers and stitchers, and a pretty significant community down there. I know Burgundy Woods was leading a lot of that, and then there's
Good.
some like,
You know Burgundy Woods?
yeah, I met
Oh
her
my
some
goodness.
time ago.
I met
Um,
Burgundy Woods before she was Burgundy Woods. I knew Burgundy Woods before she got the Burgundy in Woods.
what?
I'm trying to tell you, I used
Incredible.
to, yes, I was a part of I was a part of the Chamber of Commerce in San Antonio, but
Okay.
she was like coming out of high school. I mean, she was young
Yeah. Okay.
and she just started doing stuff to her hair and she
Uh
started
huh.
and then all of a sudden she got discovered and it was like boom. Oh
Yeah,
good.
she's like a
Okay.
whole like installation now. She's got this whole brand, and it's Burgundy Woods. Everyone knows who she is. Yeah, she's done quite a nice job. She's got the I think Janelle's Concepcion is leading what she started now with TFII. And I think that creating more synergies with what's happening regionally is important. I know that the cities, from the municipalities, love to take their stake on, like, we own this part, but I think the industry has to work together. And so I think where we've been kind of bridging that gap is making sure that, like, as we're building Austin, that we're also like peripherally connected to like San Antonio and Dallas and Houston, so that, as we're building Texas, that there's enough interconnected support for referrals for, hey, I know you got those people out there that do denim, or hey, I know you got those people out here who do activewear out in Houston. And so just trying to make sure we keep the industry close enough to be able to leverage it.
Okay. Nina, how did you get into the industry?
How did I get to do this?
Yeah, I mean, how did you discover
Oh,
that fashion was your thing? I mean, you were featured in South by Southwest, so I mean, that's what's up.
thank you. Thank you. No, South by has been a really wonderful addition to this industry build. They've really taken a stand on style tracks and interactive for some time, and now they like have kind of morphed it into retail, and now they're really taking a very clear stand on fashion and beauty. And so fashion and beauty with technology layered on top of it, and so that's really been helpful with the catalyzing of the industry, as well as the acquisition from Penske Media. So Penske Media actually holds our industry journal for fashion business, like Women's Wear Daily and Beauty Inc. and all of that. And so now they have a 2-day activation every year since they just started this last year to hold fashion and beauty. So you walk in, it's like Rosario Dawson and like, all of the top fashion schools across the country, and so it's a really good move. But my background, my fashion background started in, I went to Italy for an international fashion program with Fashion Institute of Technology out of New York. So I did 1 year in Italy and 1 year in New York. And before I finished, I started working with a contemporary women's wear line called Rebecca Taylor. And so I
Okay.
designed with them as a part of their spring, runway. And, from there, it just kind of snowballed. So I designed for American Eagle Outfitters, sold millions of dollars globally for that company. And then I moved on to Halston, that was sold on QVC. Same thing. It started with a local launch as their top QVC's top launch in history. And then I was a part of that inaugural team. And then we expanded it throughout Europe. And so when I moved here to Austin, it's kind of under family reasons. I was like, well, I'm not really done doing fashion. I really love this. I switched my career into this. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what that was before. But so that I started my own label. And so I had the experience of, like, while I was still working in New York, I started the first collection, the first capsule. And on my lunch break, I just like run down the street to the factory and say, hey, do it more like this, not like that. Here's the thing that you said that you missed. And hey, you said you lost that, but here it is. And so I could, just kind of help them get my stuff done, or I'd have like high end wholesalers right around the corner. But then when I moved to Texas and I was trying to go into that second capsule collection, oh my goodness, like I had to hire someone for quality control in New York, and then I had to like communicate with a lot of pictures and a lot of things I didn't want to do, and eventually fly back to try to make sure everything was exactly the way I wanted it to be. And I was like, if people are doing this here, I don't see how anybody's getting anything done, because at least I know where it is when I go there. But if you've never been there before, it's just a bunch of shuttered doors that you have no clue like which one to knock on. And so one of my buyers for my collection, I sold to a few specialty stores. Um, One of the buyers for my collection, she was like, "Hey, they're trying to start this fashion incubator. What do you think about possibly putting your hat in the ring?" And I was like, okay, maybe. And so I put my hat in, and I got it. And I was like, okay. And so, the only reason why I was really interested in it was because it actually felt like the perfect storm to actually succeed. So they had like politics were bought in. They had a technology partner that I knew about, but they weren't really clear on. They're like, who's this Gerber technology? And like in my business, we all live and die by Gerber. And so we were like, oh, we know exactly what that is. We know exactly what it's good for. You have how much? Whoa. And so they had no clue like what it was like really capable of, and we still haven't really been able to maximize it the way that I want us to, which is like driving me crazy. But I feel like we have the right pieces. And so we got real estate. It's just like, hey, the college handed over this amount of square footage. The technology showed up, the city pays for it, and so now the job is market it, build it, get the team in, build the advisory board, run the, you know what I mean? And so now it's like that kind of thing. So I've built it from the ground up, and I really enjoyed it. But my background is in public health. I started off in healthcare management for like breast cancer, like a mobile clinic in Washington, D.C. And then I also did some global health research and metrics. So I loved it. I slept really well at night. I helped a lot of people. It felt great. But fashion was always like this thing that I wanted to try. And so I was like, okay, plan B is set. If I am horrible at this, I'll come back to public health. It'll be fine. But I didn't have to. So until COVID, it didn't really make sense, like my whole trajectory. Um, I actually connected the dots around COVID whenever someone said, hey, we're having a hard time getting people to wear their masks. What kind of mask can we design that will help people improve public health? And so I was then on calls with Chief Innovation Officer of the city, on a regular phone call with her. I was talking with Ascension Seton. I was talking with St. David's. I was on the phone with Delmed Innovation, advising and talking to them about how do we help people do what's healthy for the population at large. And so that was really an exciting full circle moment, but also a really scary time, But we were able to use my facility to build out about 1,000 face shields,
Right.
like the plastic face shields and the masks during COVID for all of our essential workers, because they saw it to come in and make sure the buildings, were being maintained during COVID. And so that was something that was really exciting for us to be able to participate in and support.
So you really have always been an entrepreneur. I mean, seems like you just have the gift of being able to create, and
Thank
that's
you.
awesome. And I also know that we shared the same school, George Washington University.
Yes,
Uh,
that's right. G-Dub. Yes,
well,
incredible times.
so you did have a chance to speak during the Austin events with South by. What did you speak on? What was your topic?
Oh, yeah, I did. So I mentor businesses each year, and so I get like a hour and a half, and then people will kind of set blocks with me to talk about fashion, technology, go-to-market strategies, things like that. And then my panel discussion was on sustainable fashion, and so that was actually led by kind of an unofficial group here in Austin that had an additional event, but that's where my people are. And so we work with Central Texas, fashion brands and businesses that may not actually be at the South by Southwest conference, but are excited that it's happening. And so, one of the bloggers that interviewed me when I first moved to Austin, like almost 8 years ago, was hosting it. And so I was like, full circle. I was like, absolutely, Brooke, I will be right there. So the Creative Admirer was like hosting it and creating this opportunity to talk about sustainable fashion. And so, we talked about it from a variety of different angles, but our lens is always through fashion technology and what fashion tech can do to really circumvent the overproduction of fashion, so that the onus is really on creators and businesses to not put too much out into the ecosystems. Like they're producing more than we can consume, and then we're left with the leftovers to try to figure out what do we do with this now that we don't want any of these things.
Right.
And we're kind of forced to go through the trash in a way where we shouldn't have to. And so we know better. AI tells us, predictively, how long that product's going to be interesting to your customer. We already know the life cycle of skinny jeans. We already know how long cold shoulders should last. So there's no reason for us to keep making it, hoping that someone else will still buy it. So we're really helping our brands be a bit more targeted and focused with what they do.
It's interesting that you talk about how fashions recycle. And I was reading something in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal about the industry of clothes that are being now sent over into various third worlds. And so there's been some criticism, but then there's also been some healthy, praise to get people into some clothes that are fashionable. And I think maybe because of what you just said, that there's a predictability with fashion. And so some people will buy for the trend, but some people buy for the longevity of a simple blazer that is timeless. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a really good question. So there's a couple of things that I hear on that. One is kind of the export of overproduction to places that don't always have the agency to reject it. And so we have like high supply of places like Kantamanto Market in Ghana, and others, where people are actively upcycling or distributing products that were handed down to them. Now, the challenge with that is that whenever you send over Galliano or some of these other companies, and it's like leather goods, it's fur, it's a lot of things that are completely inappropriate for this part of the world to wear. And it's clearly just kind of an offloading of extra things. It's not really, there's not really a way to make that beneficial for the community that's receiving it. Now, there are other things that are helpful that you can kind of redo or whatever, but I think that I don't even know that helpful is really the word when you see the mass amounts of it that are heaped onto beaches and into communities. I think that we'll have to do better with how we consider where we place our things when we think that we're discarding them and whose community it's okay to bring it to. But
I appreciate that perspective because that's a humanitarian perspective I would have never thought about. And it seems like we're only building more waste traps for countries that just simply don't deserve it, need it. And so the consideration definitely has to be in place. I think that my previous conversation with Jermel, when she was just talking about moving, goods across the world, that these are always types of considerations in which she has to look at in order to make sure that something can get into a certain country. But maybe there's more work that has to be done there. Yeah. Nina, last question for you, because I know you're in a busy spot there. Um, what in the state of Texas, because you're in Texas now, have you had any pressures to come out with some Texan fashions that kind of go along with this culture? I know that with Beyonce now doing this Texas Hold'em, and now she's into country music. You may have some pressures on you. She's right there in Houston, right? So what is this thing now for Texas and fashion that you think that you can spark? That's what I want to know.
I will take any pressure that Beyonce is putting on me to make Western goods. B, if you're listening, we would love to make you a new collection. But we are, one of the things that I really appreciate about being here in Texas is that it has such a strong identity, such a strong culture, and and whenever you have a rich heritage, those strong concepts bring out strong fashion. And it's something that I've learned from, mentors that were at Dior. They were at all these, big fashion houses. But I think, Texas really has the makings of that kind of heritage to pass along and share with other parts of the world, which is very exciting. You know, I was just doing a lecture at the University of Texas for their business and society class. So it's a class taught between the business and government schools. And, we were talking about kind of the influence of Western wear, not just to the state or the country, but to the world, and how it's such an iconic anthem of America. And so it's really powerful to be able to do that. So, I told them there, and I'll tell anyone here, if you're trying to build a Western line, we'd love to help you cultivate that. So, I don't have any Western brands right now, but I would love to take some in. So.
Well, let me give you a little praise, because I know that you're volunteering your time to work with the Young America's Leadership Program that the U.S. State Department has brought to Texas Global at University of Texas in Austin. And just knowing that there's 13 to 14 young people who have come to the United States to be able to see how we operate, and that you're taking part and giving of your time and really making a difference, because I know that the person who has been assigned to you was just ecstatic on the very first time that I met her. So, maybe you could tell us more about what your experience is with your give back in this way, and how you think that your efforts will make a change in perhaps the economy of a whole different city, country, just based off of this one opportunity which we have to share. And guess what? I'll be there on Friday teaching the how to network in the United States. I can't wait to bring my Global Chamber team, but we're going to talk about, how they can make meaningful connections. So you can close on that note too.
Excellent. I love that. So thank you, first of all. It's a pleasure to get a chance to connect with leaders from across the world. I think that first and foremost, Austin is a global city. We are on this planet with a lot of other people, but I think at some point people didn't realize how much prominence the city has risen to and how much visibility it has now. And I think that sometimes there's a little discomfort, that people may have with kind of being so visible. They're like, oh, there's so many people here, there's so many people looking at us, and it's like, yeah, okay, so what do we want to say now? It's like we have all eyes are on you, Austin. Now, what are we going to say to the world? And I think that whenever we have opportunities for engagement, for business development, for connection, I think Austin has some really incredible ways of being that are driven by collaboration, really the sentient knowing of how to drive impact and investment, and really getting that return. And I think that a lot of that really ignites people when they come here. There's so much possibility, when they come into South by Southwest, or they're walking through our spaces that are driven by innovation. There's a lot of excitement around that. And so I'm excited about our fellow. This is our second year being a fellowship placement organization with the State Department, with Texas Global. And this is something that we really believe in, because as we cultivate this fashion industry, we're looking outside of ourselves as well to say, okay, when they're done here, how do we promote them and push them out further? And so honestly, YLAI and Texas Global and the State Department really help us to cultivate some of those early stage engagements to determine what our next steps are in terms of who do we develop a larger scale engagement with. We just came off of doing the ATX plus Egypt program as a implementation partner for the City of Austin Economic Development Department. And so that was an out of scope project that we did, as a consultant for the city. That really supported, the development of the scaling of fashion businesses out of Austin. And so we really wanted to be able to introduce other cultures and other, regions of the world to our businesses so that they can benefit. So although we're inviting people here, it's really opening a door for us to be able to share Austin with the world.
Very nice, very nice. I appreciate your brilliance, and I appreciate your volunteer spirit to make a difference. So if you had one networking story that you would share with the fellows, because I'm going to show them a clip of this video in the class tomorrow, what would you tell them is the key to networking in the United States?
I would say first, um, know who you are and the value that you bring to the table, and be genuinely curious about other people, and ask questions. You'll never know where that will lead you. And if you can walk into each conversation with an open mind, as well as some key objectives or what you'd like to gain from the conversation, I think you'll find that networking here can be quite amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I'll see you
Thank
hopefully.
you.
I'll see you soon. Take care.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for the interview.
Hey, my pleasure.